Hello, and welcome to My Week in Baseball. I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison. You're listening to Season 4, Episode number 4. All episodes are available in both video and podcast format at myweekinbaseball.com or subscribe on YouTube at My Week in Baseball. This week, a special thanks goes out to Ari Estruth in Nashville for our awesome and newly revised intro music. And also, thank you to Rose Petal Studios for the logo and artwork created for this show. Learn more at rosepetalstudios.com. Well, today we've got a shrinking strike zone, a new base running rule, a record for Detroit's Riley Greene, a catch for the ages by Toronto's Dalton Varsho, and a non-catch by a poor White Sox team. Plus, Tarik Skubal's amazing start. Of course, we'll also have a blast from the past and a timely Blimerick, our baseball limerick, along the way. So let's get right to it. We'll start out with a trivia question. What current San Francisco Giants player hit a home run in his first at-bat in the same ballpark his grandfather played in? Hint, this question is both for Giants fans and Red Sox fans. Next, a quick happy birthday shout out to Lou Whitaker, former Rookie of the Year, 5-time All-Star, and should-be Hall of Fame second baseman of the Detroit Tigers, whose birthday is today, May 12, 2025. He turns 68. And that mention of a Tiger from the 1984 World Championship team leads us into our blast from the past. This week, it's Tigers center fielder Chet Lemon, who recently passed away. One thing I learned about Chet Lemon that surprised me, I knew he had a great reputation for being a terrific defensive outfielder, but interestingly, he never won a Gold Glove during his Major League Baseball career, despite being one of the best center fielders in history. And this is interesting because going by the metrics that we now use to measure defense, and there are a number of them, and they are all perfect. But he is a top 12 player all time in total zone runs prevented. And he never won a Gold Glove. I think it has to do with the voting. You vote for the Gold Glove, especially historically, and they didn't have the kind of stats to look at back then. It was all the eye test. I think a bit of a popularity contest as well. So it surprised me to see that his former manager, Sparky Anderson, even called Lemon the best center fielder he'd ever seen. So let's take a quick look at some of Chet Lemon's career stats. Not only was he good defensively, and actually I'm going to talk about that first because we brought that up already, but over the course of his career, he played nearly 1,500 games in center field. That was his primary position. For just a little over 40 games as a designated hitter, a little under 500 games as a right fielder, and believe it or not, a handful of games at third base, second base, and even left field. But it's really center field that he's known for. And during the course of his career, his fielding runs above average in center field, 96. That is terrific. That's an average of about 9 a year over his career, which makes him really one of the best center fielders around. He also had a range factor, the number of balls he gets to or plays he would make during 9 innings, of over 3, when the range factor for that position for the league-wide was only 2.9. So not only did he make great plays, he got to a lot of balls. So to me, that is a good way to look at his defense. We know he was a great fielder at a key position for a championship team. The thing that is interesting that you may not know is how good of a hitter he actually was. And he had a .273 career batting average, which is a solid batting average, of course. He had an on-base percentage for his career, this is over 16 years, of .355. That's super. I mean, that's like leadoff hitter caliber. And Without going back and looking at the lineups, I'm thinking it was more like a number 6 and sometimes number 7 hitter in that lineup. So this is super. His on-base plus slugging for his career was 121, 21% better than league average. So really terrific offensively. Over a 162 game season, he would average 18 home runs and 32 doubles. So solid performance there. His strikeout to walk ratio was terrific. Again, over an average full season. He would average 61 walks and only 83 strikeouts, which you just don't see anymore. Most guys they strike out twice as much as they walk. So to have a hitter and defender of this caliber, this was really fantastic. He originally played for the Chicago White Sox, and he played for the White Sox up through 1981. And in November of 81, during that offseason between 81 and 82, he was traded from the Chicago White Sox to Detroit for Detroit's outfielder Steve Kemp. And that turned out to be quite a good trade for the Tigers. Kemp was okay and had been a great hitter for Detroit up until that point, but really playing that key position and being able to be an important player on that 84 championship team, one of many. I think back to that team myself, and there were a number of names that you'll think of as star players, probably Kirk Gibson, Alan Trammell, Jack Morris, maybe Dan Petrie, and of course the closer Willie Hernandez, who was the Cy Young winner and MVP that year. But in my mind, none of them other than Hernandez, who had an amazing season, were individually outstanding. They were just all really good players, every single position, everywhere through the rotation. They had a solid bullpen. It was a really nice team. So fond memories of Chet Lemon, today's blast from the past. Next up, is the strike zone shrinking? Well, I get this information from The Athletic, from writers Jason Stark, Ken Rosenthal, and more. But it's interesting to note that players think the strike zone is smaller than it used to be. And it turns out they are correct. Although strangely, they were not informed, even though Major League Baseball says that they told the GMs and the field managers ahead of time that this was happening. The players knew that during spring training, they were going to be testing the automated ball and strike zone, which I've talked about before. But their understanding was once that was over, once that testing was over, at least for this season, the strike zone would go back to what it always has been. And certainly the actual dimensions of the strike zone have not changed. But here is what has changed. The umpires have a new collective bargaining agreement. And in that agreement, they are judged differently on how they call balls and strikes. And that's why the zone is affected. So previously, umpires were allowed a 2-inch buffer zone around the plate. So basically, the way I read it, any ball that touched that buffer zone was considered an accurate call for the umpire. So if you called a strike 2 inches away from the actual zone, in your tallies for the year, in your measurements for the year, you as an umpire, the way you're graded, that did not count against you. That was considered an accurate call. It has changed significantly. So instead of a 2-inch buffer around the zone, now there is only 3/4 of an inch buffer. So it is now less than half what it used to be. And that makes the strike calling more narrow, less inside strikes and less outside strikes. It's really all around the zone, less high strikes, less low strikes, because you as an umpire know you're being graded on this. And so you've got to be a little tighter on those calls. They've got to be closer to the zone than they used to be. And part of what I found interesting about this, it made me think about it. Well, 2 inches, okay, that seems like a fair buffer zone from the past. How big is a baseball? Well, it turns out a baseball is roughly 3 inches in diameter. It's actually about 2 7/8 of an inch, although the official range allows for the ball to be slightly smaller or slightly bigger. So in the past, that allowance of 2 inches was about 2/3 the width of a baseball, right? Now it's more like a quarter the width of a baseball with that 3/4 of an inch. So it's really tight. The ball's got to be close to the zone to be called a strike if you, the umpire, are going to be given credit for it as a correct call. I think it makes sense. I can understand with a move toward automated balls and strikes, which we're likely to see next year, you would want umpires to call the strike zone closer to what ABS is going to call it, because you don't really want to have a bunch of calls that are challenged or overturned. So it does make sense. It's really surprising, though, that the players didn't know this was happening. So as a pitcher, if you have, during your career, relied on this slightly wider strike zone or slightly higher and lower strike zone, depending on how you pitch and what kind of pitches you throw, how they move into the zone, you've counted on that. And probably certain umpires would have a reputation for calling strikes in a certain way, but you're relying on that as a pitcher. And as a hitter, you also expect the zone to be that way, but it's not. It's not. It's a much tighter strike zone. So just something to note if you're an umpire or if you're watching games, the strike zone is smaller than it used to be. It's technically the same size, but it's being called as a smaller zone than it used to be. Next up, another rule change, this time on base running. And this might sound a little bit obscure, but I found it interesting. This rule is about abandoning a base. Why would you do this? Why would a runner abandon a base? Well, the answer is to help a teammate score. So here's the situation this applies to. You're the runner on first, and you have a teammate who's on third base, and a ball is hit on the ground, okay? You want that teammate to be able to score. It seems that this would be most likely to apply with 2 outs. So you run through second base. You purposely run through the base without sliding, really for 2 reasons. One, you're trying to beat the throw to second. But the other reason, the reason you're really going past the base, is that you'd want to get caught in a rundown. You want to get off the base just enough that the defenders have to come chasing after you with the ball, which delays them just enough while your teammate from third runs in and scores before you are tagged out. So here's what's different. The new rule now allows an umpire to call a runner out, not just by being touched with the ball or being forced out. You can now call the runner out for abandoning second base, even if they beat the throw. So the runner comes in, steps on the base, beats the throw, is safe, but then passes the base, hoping that you'll have to tag him so that his teammate can score. But the umpire can say, you know what? Nope, you abandoned the base, so you are out. Now, it doesn't mean that your teammate couldn't score. They could. But here's the thing. Now, instead of you getting caught in a rundown, giving that runner a chance to get across the base, then you're tagged out. Now it really depends on when you abandon the base. So if you're called for abandoning the base and your teammate has already gotten across third base, your teammate has already gotten across home plate from third to home. If they get home before you're called for abandoning the base, yep, they score. But if you are not called for abandoning the base, even if the fielder hasn't touched it with the bag, even if you weren't forced out, you're technically at this point still safe. If you're called out for abandoning the base and that out occurs before your teammate crossed home plate, then that run does not count. So in other words, the rule change really means that a rundown doesn't have to happen for a player to be called out anymore. They can now be called out for abandoning the base. A little bit obscure, but something I found interesting and will make a difference on some close plays. So next up, our Blimerick, our baseball limerick that we have every episode, and this time it's a tribute to base running and those new rules. So here we go. Second base, I used to run through. You'd score, our lead renewed. It used to work, but now I'm a jerk. I'm out, and no runs accrue. Next up, Detroit outfielder Riley Greene is now in the record books. On May 2nd of this year, 2025, versus the Los Angeles Angels, Greene hit 2 home runs. Why was that unusual? Other people have hit 2 home runs, happens fairly often. But the unique thing about this was that Riley Greene hit both of them in the same inning in the 9th inning. Angels closer Kenley Jansen, who actually has more than 450 career saves, he's number 4 on the all-time saves list. In this particular game, he got clobbered as the Tigers batted around the lineup. Riley Greene getting 2 at-bats and hitting a home run both times. And it was the first time in MLB history to have 2 home runs in the 9th inning by the same player. Believe it or not. Next, the Dalton Varsho catch. On April 29, and if you're a Blue Jays fan, you already know this. You might even know it if you're a Red Sox fan because they were playing the Red Sox. But the Sox outfielder, Jarren Duran, hits a fly ball to the wall in center field where Varsho is playing. The chance of it being a hit, the expected batting average on this ball is .910. That means there's a 91% chance of it being a hit. Toronto's Dalton Varsho, who is an excellent defender, but on this particular ball, as he ran toward the center field wall, he tripped at the warning track and he rolls over on his shoulder. And as you're watching this, you are sure Duran must be about to get a double or a triple, maybe even an inside the park home run. But at the last moment, Varsho rolls and pops up on one knee. His back is toward the infield, and with the glove on his left hand, he just reaches out and backhand grabs the ball just above the ground. It's absolutely crazy. If you have a chance, I have watched it dozens of times. You just have to go and check it out. But search for April 29, or probably if you just say Dalton Varsho's catch, I think it will come up. Next up, the non-catch. So we just talked about a terrific catch by a Blue Jay. Now we're going to talk about a horrible, really embarrassing non-catch by a White Sox player. This happened on May 6th. The White Sox turn a late inning lead into a blown save when a routine pop-up bounces off the head of their second baseman. His name, Chase Meidroth. It's a high pop-up. Meidroth fouls the ball running from his second base spot toward first, and it's certainly catchable. Meidroth is right under the ball. He reaches up. The ball scrapes the top edge of the webbing of his glove, and it lands right on his head, bouncing off his cap. Oh. Well, alertly, the right fielder grabs the ball and throws to second for what should have been an easy force out because the runner who was on first had to hold expecting that the catch would be made. But now the throw to second is over the head of the shortstop and everybody is safe. So 2 errors on the play, bounces off the second baseman's head. Right fielder alertly picks it up, but then throws it over the shortstop's head. Everybody's safe. It's so embarrassing. It's just another poor year for the Chicago White Sox. And I know crazy things could happen to any team, but it seems like this sort of thing often happens to those teams that aren't playing well. And the White Sox, after setting a record last year for the worst team in Major League history, aren't off to a terrific start this year either. Oh, and I did look up the defensive metrics for Chase Meidroth. For runs above average as a shortstop, he is -3. That's not great. Not maybe horrible, but it's certainly not great. At second base, where he was playing on this night, he's actually a 0. So he'd be at least considered league average at second. So he really should be better at second, but that's where this error took place. Next, Skubal's start. So this I give credit to my brother for pointing this out to me. Tarik Skubal has been awesome this year, especially in his last 6 starts. So this is really an amazing statistic. In his last 6 starts, his strikeout to walk rate, 50-1. 50 strikeouts, 1 walk. He has an earned run average of 0.98. 1 run a game. He's basically giving up 1 run a game and striking people out like crazy. This spans 37 innings over his last 6 starts, and apparently it is the first time that has happened over that period of time in MLB history. So thanks, Andy, for that information. And finally, the answer to today's trivia question. This may have been an easy one for you. Let's see. What current Giants player hit a home run in his first at-bat in the same ballpark his grandfather played in? I've already told you it's for Giants fans and Red Sox fans, so you may know the answer. The answer is, of course, outfielder Mike Yastrzemski of the Giants, who homered in his first game in Fenway Park. He was on the visiting team, and the home run happened back in 2019. His grandfather, of course, is Carl Yastrzemski, the Red Sox legend who played 23 years in the 1960s and 70s and even into the early 80s. And Carl, the grandfather, is especially famous for waving his arms in the hopes that his long fly ball would stay fair. It did, for a game-winning homer during the 1975 World Series. So the answer to the question, of course, is his grandson, Mike Yastrzemski, current outfielder for the San Francisco Giants. So that's all for today, my friends. Join us next time because, honestly, what can be better than talking baseball? As always, I'm your host, Phil S. Truth Harrison. We'll see you next time on My Week in Baseball.